Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We just want to give a couple more minutes for people who are logging in with us. But in the meantime, I would like to draw your attention to the different engagement tools we have available for you. So at the bottom of your screen, you will see a blue button. That is the group chat button. Please feel free to introduce yourself, where you're from, what position you hold, and what subject you teach to all of our attendees. And the green button is our resource button, and through that button you can access all of the resources that will be referenced throughout this evening's presentation, as well as the PowerPoint. So we will be with you in just a couple minutes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for our webinar, Structuring Synchronous and Asynchronous Learning in the 2020 to 2021 school year, Strategies for Inclusive Engagement. My name is Pascal Joseph. I am a project coordinator with the Tools and Classroom Resources team here at Student Achievement Partners, and I want to introduce to you this evening's presenters. We have Bethany Lockhart Johnson, a kindergarten teacher with Downey Unified School District, Matt Kerrigan, a fourth grade math teacher with Mastery Charter Schools, Eric Garnier, a fourth grade math and science teacher with Mastery Charter Schools, and Claire Rivero, a digital strategy manager here at Student Achievement Partners. Before we get started, I really want to know, how many Core Advocate webinars have you attended? This could be your first one, or this could be your 20th one. Let us know by clicking on the poll here on your screen. Wow, we have a lot of first-timers. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to people who have returned. We're glad to have you here. And before we get started, I really want to encourage you to join our network. We have a National Core Advocate Network through which you can have the opportunity to sign up for additional webinars, know any special events that are going on across the network. You can collaborate with people who are also maybe in the same area as you or across the country. If you have any questions about the Core Advocate program, please feel free to contact Jenny Beltramini or Joy DeLizo Osborne, and you can also complete this survey on this page and join our mailing list. During tonight's presentation, you have the ability to tweet with us. You can use the hashtag Core Advocates at Achieve the Core. You can also tweet at Jenny Beltro, and one of our presenters, Bethany, has provided her Twitter handle at LockhartEDU. Again, the different tools with which you can engage with us. There is a purple Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. This button is just for questions directed towards the presenters or asking for technical assistance. The green button is our resources widget. You will have access to all of the resources that are mentioned throughout tonight's presentation. And next to that is the blue group chat button, which I just received notification that the group chat has reached a limit. I will say that tonight has been a record number of attendance for us. I apologize if you're not able to join the group chat, but we will make sure to share the group chat as a resource so you can look at everyone's responses to all of the polls after this evening's presentation. So just a couple goals of the webinar. The goals are reimagine math, share-outs as asynchronous opportunities to leverage student voices, identify co-teacher model in online classrooms, leverage synchronous online platforms to increase student engagement and participation, and introduce the illustrative mathematics K through 8 talking math discussion resources. So without further ado, I present to you Bethany Lockhart-Johnson.
Hi, can you hear me okay? My name is Bethany Lockhart-Johnson. Perfect, thank you. My name is Bethany Lockhart-Johnson. I'm a kindergarten teacher for the 2019-20 school year. I was part of Downey Unified School District, which is here in Southern California. As a kindergarten teacher, in the group chat, I noticed that we have K through 12, which is wonderful. And so hopefully the resources that I provide and the structure that I provide will give you some insights and ideas no matter what grade. Sometimes my secondary friends, they hear kindergarten and they say, oh, that can't apply to me. But I think we're all in this together, so hopefully it's going to resonate with you. So one of the big questions that my section will answer is, how can teachers utilize technology to amplify student voices and ideas? So I start here. This is a picture, a screenshot of my computer. And I put this in here because when we first went to distance learning, this is kind of what my brain looked like. If you see all of those tabs up along the top, I felt like I was bumping into walls. I would find this resource and open it and say, oh, I need to go to Amazon. Oh, wait, what's happening? Okay, what are people saying on Facebook? What are people saying on Twitter? And I felt so overwhelmed. So there came a point about 2 weeks in when I stopped, I closed the tabs, and I said, I need to take a step back and really look at this opportunity. And of course, I want to be in that classroom with my students. But what is possible during this time? And I am not going to say that it was magically fixed. I knew exactly what to do, but I'll show you the structure that I ended up working with and what seemed to work for our time together in the spring. So first I paused to think, okay, what are my considerations for distance learning? Who am I accountable to? Of course, my students. But I also needed to think about what were the district and the school site expectations. And many of us know those changed almost daily. So we would get an update from our school, from our principal, from the district, and we were all just trying to figure out what are the expectations, what do we need to do. The other thing is really I wanted to know that as a teacher I was trusted, that these were the students that I had had for the last 6 months. We've been building a culture and a community, and I wanted to know that my district trusted me, and I felt like they did. I had to think about what does learning look like in our classroom versus what does it look like now. And when we think about potentially going into the fall without having that in-person time to really build community, it's a little bit daunting. We think about, well, we had that time to establish class community. How am I going to do this from the beginning? And I wish that there was an easy answer, but I think all of us have really gained some knowledge over that time with our students and found out some things that work and some things that didn't work. And something that I found was really important is that there was a focus on social, emotional, and community building. That as much as the standards matter, as much as I wanted my students to meet grade level expectations and to be ready to thrive in first grade, I knew that we needed to build in that time for social, emotional, and I also needed to find ways to keep leveraging student voices so they would hear from each other. So I want to show you a little bit of a map that I wound up putting together. If you see on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I had small group synchronous Zoom calls. And let me tell you, Zoom with kindergarten students, with any students, but with kindergarten students my experience was an adventure. And really what I found worked best was small groups. And I talked to families and tried to figure out rough times that would work best and wound up grouping my students. It wasn't always homogeneous grouping. We had groups that were differentiated, but basically I was trying to figure out how do I meet with these students in small groups so that everyone's voices can be heard. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would meet with the same groups on Monday, on Wednesday, on Friday. So I would see them in a synchronous environment 3 times a week. The focus during that time was on English language arts, was on reading, was on word work. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would spend time recording read-alouds. I would have seesaw assignments that I would create. That was one of the main platforms that we used. And I would also occasionally do one-on-one sessions as needed. And I also really prioritized parent and caregiver communication because I found that for the families that I was working with, the phone calls worked best. We used, we did have Class Dojo. I didn't use it for I know it has a behavior function where you can track students' points or something. I didn't use that. I just used it as like a communication means to be able to almost text with parents. But I found that I needed to make sure I was setting aside time to actually call parents and to have parents feel like they could reach out to me. On Friday, I also had an all-class Zoom call. So that time wound up being a hodgepodge. We would do science experiments, games, community development, art. Sometimes I would assign, for instance, I assigned a science project that then they worked on all week, and on Friday we got to share it out. One week it was a joke-telling session. One week I just played the songs and the videos that we would do for our warm-ups, and we all sang together. One time we did a pet parade that wound up being a sibling parade. So people were parading their siblings across the screen, and it was just a time for us to connect. And sometimes, honestly, put on the Zoom, and I was just quiet, and students would just look, hi, and it was just these little chorus of hellos, this chance to see each other. But I also, what you're not seeing on here is a direct and specific time for math. And what I want to talk with you about today is something that I did to create an asynchronous time for math. I found that our math class was primarily we were a CGI-based district, cognitively guided instruction. Most of my math time in person was spent in a problem-solving cycle where we would launch a problem. The students would have time to work on the problem. We would do a share out of the problem, and we would build on those ideas. So I found that whole group math share outs that were synchronous did not work. Besides just students not being able to hear each other, it was also hard to see the students' work and attend to their work samples. It was kind of a mess. And so I said, okay, how can I have some seesaw assignments that incorporate math and some activities where they can practice just even number writing, or they can practice some activities, but how do I keep that problem-solving cycle going? So when I thought about math, the first thing I did was I thought about major, supporting, and additional clusters from kindergarten. And someone said that my audio is going out, so if that keeps up, just please let me know in that group chat. This image right here is achievethecore.org. It's from Student Achievement Partners. And this is basically, they have this available for every grade. And it's taking the standards and it's looking at what is the major focus for that grade. Where should you be spending the bulk of your instructional time? The supporting and additional clusters, like for example, shapes are a part of the supporting and additional cluster. It doesn't mean that they're not important. It just means that they're not the priority. And you're not going to be able to see, basically this image is just the standards. So just know that my goal with this, putting this images in here, is to show that first, when I was planning math, I went in and looked at what are my standards and what's my focus going to be. So my major work of the grade was prioritized. So I wanted to look at the kindergarten standards and look at where was I going to build the bulk of the instruction. So when I was creating those math problems that we were going to work on in an asynchronous environment, that those were really hitting standards in the major clusters of the grades. So for the problem that I'm going to share, we really focus on operations and algebraic thinking. And there's two standards in particular that I wanted to focus on: decomposing numbers that are less than or equal to 10, and also representing addition and subtraction. I also wanted to make sure that my problems had multiple points of entry for students. I love that my students in class felt like they could work together. They could come to me to ask for help. We had lots of tools available. But for everyone at home, I didn't know what was the environment that they were going to be diving into these problems. So I wanted these problems to really be accessible to the widest number of students as possible. I also wanted to be using apps that were easy for students to interface with, or that they were already familiar with. So we used Flipgrid and Seesaw. We primarily use Seesaw in class, and Seesaw I mentioned earlier, and that's an app where teachers can post assignments. There's also a trove of assignments that other teachers have created and shared. I found I use the create assignment function a lot, and that's something where students can record their responses. We use it during counting collections. They can record their voice. They can record images. And Seesaw was the app that we had used a lot in class, so it felt like a good fit to do that asynchronous work. We also used Flipgrid, and Flipgrid was not something that we had used a lot, and so I created a little tutorial for my families, which was basically like, click here, push this big plus to record, and it's pretty intuitive, so my kiddos caught on to it really quickly. The other thing is that the priority for me was that students' voices were heard and prioritized, and that students were engaged in each other's thinking. So all of those things I'm thinking about as I'm trying to create an asynchronous math share out. So the problem that I want to share with you today: Mrs. Minton has 10 rabbits in her backyard. Sometimes the rabbits are in the hutch, and sometimes they are out on the grass. Show the different ways the rabbits can be in Mrs. Minton's backyard. So this problem, and that image is an image that is from Google. It's nobody's backyard, but the students had done a version of this problem in the fall with 5 rabbits. 5 is the number for fluency, is where we do our fluency in kindergarten. So when I started asynchronous work, this felt like a great problem to start with, because students were going to be they were familiar already with the idea of the rabbits in the hutch, and that the rabbits can be in different places. And I posted this on Flipgrid. So if you're not familiar with Flipgrid, you have your main grid and you have different topics. So I could send the families a link to this specific topic. So they could go right here to this topic. They could see the problem. There's even a feature where they can play the words out to be like, it transcribes it for them. So they can hear the audio read to them, And then they can post their response, and they can really easily review other students as well. Okay, so next I'm going to show you a video, what I did after the students posted their responses on Flipgrid. So Flipgrid, again, it was asynchronous. The students had went on when they were able to. They went on, they posted their response to the question about the rabbits in the backyard, and then I wanted to, again, meet those goals for an asynchronous math share-out. And the video is about 3 minutes.
Here's what I'm going to do. I thought it would be fun if we did it almost like a share-out. So you know how in class you do your work, and then we share it out, and you'll come up to the front, you'll share your idea, and we'll chart it, and we'll talk about it. Well, since we're not in person, we still have your voice from Flipgrid. Remember, you guys answered the question on Flipgrid? So I'm going to play those responses, and I'm going to record it. And we're going to take a look at the chart, and we're going to see, did we find all the ways? So first thing I'm going to do is share my screen. This is my computer screen. Let's move this over here. And then here is Flipgrid. Remember Flipgrid? And then when I scroll down, so here's the problem right here. And when I scroll down here, I can see your different responses. So we're going to start here with Patrick's response.
There is 4 rabbits out in the grass, and there's 6 in the hutch.
Great. So I'm going to chart Patrick's idea over here. Over here I put, there's 2 columns I'm going to write in. One will be for the rabbits that are in the hutch, and one will be for the rabbits that are on the grass. So let's listen to Patrick's one more time. And as we play it, I'm going to record what he says.
There is 4 rabbits out in the grass, and there's 6 in the hutch.
So Patrick said there are 4 rabbits in the grass and 6 in the hutch. So let me come over here. So I want to write down that that was Patrick's idea, but it's a little hard to see with the blue. Let me change the color. There we go. Now we can see that that was Patrick's idea. Okay, let's hear the next answer.
There are so many ways to do this. One way is 5 in the hutch and 5 in the grass. Another way is 4 in the hutch and 6 in the grass. Another way is 3 in the hutch and 7 in the grass.
Nice, Daniela. You gave us quite a few different ways. So you said there could be 3 in the hutch, 7 on the grass, 4 in the hutch, 6 on the grass, or there could be 5 in the hutch and 5 on the grass. And I want you to notice, what do you notice is similar to Patrick's idea? There's something that's similar, but not quite the same.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I was muted. Okay, so thank you guys in the chat for reminding me. I'm talking away. So for that video, I used Zoom. So it was great to use Zoom because I was able to go in a meeting, just me, and in Zoom, I went onto the share screen function. So by sharing my screen, you were able to see me. So the students were able to see me talking to them. And then you were also able to see, I had pulled up the browser that had Flipgrid in it. So they were watching me go through the Flipgrid videos. And then the thing I was charting on the side was just a screenshot of, basically I took a white page with the photos of the hutch and the grass. I took that picture and I put that right next to where I was going to play the video. And I used the Zoom annotation tools to be able to chart, just like I would chart in my classroom. And you'll notice I said things like, I'm going to change the color on this, or I'm going to try charting this over here. I'm going to put Patrick's name. So just like I would if I was in the room with them, I really wanted to to be with them and walking them through in the video as I was charting their ideas. So this video, after I had recorded playing through all of their responses, again, this is just me in the meeting, I took that video and I sent that video out to families. And I invited families to watch the video. So again, the students are watching me interact with their videos, and they're hearing each other's responses. So even students who hadn't posted on Flipgrid were also able to hear other people's responses. So now the students have the video of them, right? They're watching it, they're watching me interact with it. And what I did at the very end of the video, I took a screenshot of the chart, and by chart I mean that page that I had at the where I had charted their answers during the video, and I put that on Seesaw. And I asked the students, I said, do you think that we found all the ways for the rabbits to be in the hutch? So the image that you're seeing now, the rectangle up at the top, that's the way that it looked on Seesaw. There is the video that the students could watch, and then there were the image that then they could record on it. So students recorded their ideas onto the chart that we had started together on the video. So the nice thing is that I could see the different ways that they found. Some found one more way, some found multiple ways, some attended to that structure of the structure I was trying to show them with the chart of add-ins increasing on one side and decreasing on the other. And then you'll notice this one on the right, I also put a version in there where it was the photo and students could draw the way that they thought the rabbits could be. So on this one, she put 5 in the hutch and 5 out of the hutch. And what worked about this for me was, again, this asynchronous math lesson, and this was over the course of about a week. This was meeting the goals that I had set out to create an asynchronous math share-out. It was prioritizing the major work of the grade, which again, I shared those standards that I was focused on. The problem had multiple points of entry within the problem for the students. So whether they found multiple ways for the rabbits to be in and out of the hutch, they were successful if they could find at least one way. And then they got to hear a lot of different ideas and different ways that students had found. The students were familiar with these apps, and if they weren't too familiar with Flipgrid, they had had this experience, and I saw that there were multiple views on the videos because the students wanted to see themselves and hear their voices, not mine. Students' voices were heard and prioritized, and students were engaged in each other's thinking. And so for my class, and I think that this could be applicable across grade levels, using these tools as a way to capture student voice, but for students to be able to interact with the share out in an asynchronous way, and then also have a platform via Seesaw where they could then even extend their thinking and add other ways that they could find the rabbits in the hutch. I found that students were able to be very successful in this asynchronous math share out, and it was an opportunity for us to have that problem-solving cycle even though we weren't in person. And I invite you to share any opportunities you see for student sense-making as they work through the number problem about rabbits in the backyard. This would be a chance to respond in the group chat. If you have questions, you can respond in the Q&A, and I'll do my best to respond to those questions. And thank you so much for the opportunity to get to share this activity with you. Our next presenters are Matt Kerrigan, a 4th grade math teacher in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Eric Garnier, 4th grade teacher, Math and Science, Mastery Charter Schools.
Hey, Bethany. This is Matt, and thank you so much. I know even while I was listening to that presentation as a math teacher, thinking about how I could stretch a problem-solving over multiple days. I thought that was really impressive and something that I maybe want to build into my practice. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Matt Kerrigan. I'm a fourth grade math teacher currently at Mastery Charter Schools in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Before that, I was a public school and charter school teacher down in Washington, D.C., across the elementary grades, but mostly with a focus on math. And we got
And how you guys doing? My name is Eric Garnier, also fourth grade math and science teacher at Mastery Charter along with Matt. Been teaching in the Philadelphia area for about 7 years now. Prior to that, I was in New York, in Brooklyn, New York, doing the same thing, teaching third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade, all subjects. So glad to be here with you guys. I'm glad you guys can make it. Let's get started on what works for me and Matt.
So yeah, we're hoping that this section, even though we're going to come at it from what worked in a grade 4 classroom, the tools we're talking about hopefully we'll be able to deepen student engagement during online live lessons, regardless of content and regardless of grade area. So Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you as we hit our first sort of aha moment.
How can you
Eric, you must be unmuted.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good now.
How can you deepen student engagement during online live lessons, which is probably an area that a lot of us struggled with during online learning platform? And Matt and I tried to come up with the most creative ways to engage our students with things that they like and, things that they're used to. Obviously, all our kiddos are used to different types of technology, handheld devices. So we try to cater our lessons to some of the platforms that they're used to and kind of use it to drive instruction. So the first thing that Matt and I did is we developed a co-teaching role and responsibilities. So during our live Zoom lessons, we typically had about 50 to 60 students in the Zoom at the same time. And that would definitely cause for concern with one teacher. So we thought it would be a good idea if 2 teachers would be on the Zoom chat and each teacher would play a certain role. So you have a lead presentator. We found the best practices online learning was definitely this model. So one teacher would be the lead presenter. That teacher would focus on just basically teaching, delivering the content, model, guide, some practices, and turn to students for independent practice using several of our popular hit platforms like Flipgrid, which Claire just spoke about not too long ago, quizzes, and Nearpod, which I will elaborate on in a few seconds. And then you had the behind-the-scenes manager who focused on student engagement, setting high expectations for online success. I'm pretty sure a lot of you know that the students that were very successful were always on screen, were always sitting up at a table, no TV, no one in the room, pencil and paper in hand, and ready to go. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to highlight that every day, that those are best practices, so students would want to mimic those successful behaviors and fall in line. So what the other teacher did, the behind-the-scenes manager also did, was help with the chats. So you have 60 students chatting sometimes at the same time. They don't chat each other, they chat us. So if they have questions, I would be the one to interject and answer. Meanwhile, the other teacher, like Matt, would be just still driving instruction. So that would just alleviate one of the problems that he would have to worry about with 60 students. Managing the mute button, throwing kids in waiting rooms that weren't responsive. And then when parents found out the kids were in the waiting room, they were, why were you in the waiting room? Oh, we called on you and you didn't respond, so you got put in the waiting room. So that also let parents know what their kids were doing. Also, managing the private chat with the students and the teacher was very successful also because, a lot of students had troubleshooting problems like, oh, Mr. G or Mr. Kerrigan, we don't know where to go. What's the Flipgrid code? What's the Nearpod code? And while Matt or I was still teaching, the other presenter can just manage those situations. All right. So let's go to the next slide. And basically, it was a huge success. We had a lot of success with it. We relayed those messages and our success with our colleagues, and then they started using it. But after a while, the honeymoon stage is over, and kids, you have to feed the soul and give them something else to do. So we started this Nearpod platform, which at first I did not buy into, and Matt was with it. Matt loved it. I was skeptical about it because at the end of the day, I was just thinking to myself, another platform, like another internet site that we have to go to try to get the same point across. At the end of the day, where students have several different platforms. Zoom was a problem. Getting kids to log on to Zoom, be on time, no troubleshooting kids, just to log into Zoom. And then every week we'd have another platform that the kids had to get accustomed to or know where they had to go to get to where they need to be. So what Matt and I did was we bought into Nearpod, which was a platform that we used that was very successful. So Nearpod.com is a free presentation platform that we use. It does have some money tiers, meaning that some of the basic functions of the platform is free. You're able to do a lot with the basic functions, but if you were successful, then you would pay for a subscription or to a premium package, as you would say. You can co-host live literally while the kids are using the Nearpod platform, and what you got was real-time feedback and data from the kids as you were on. So, for example, if I was teaching and a student was on the Nearpod and I see that they weren't working, it would show me on my screen that the student has not responded to the question that we asked them yet. So then the behind-the-scenes manager would jump on that student like, well, why are you not working? Why haven't you submitted your responses yet? So we would all hold, Nearpod held all the kids accountable for the work that they need to do. Nearpod is compatible with Google Slides and all PowerPoints. And also you can embed different interactive features into the Nearpod, meaning like YouTube. Vocabulary was a hit. It was basically teaching a mini lesson using rap or using music as a way to reach the kids and give them the content in a different way that they're accustomed to everyday lives. A lot of kids can repeat songs that have nothing to do with education. If we start giving them education in music, that's linking the two together. So that was very successful. And then also using YouTube, which is a big hit with all our kids. You can actually embed YouTube videos into those presentations. Matt, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, and thanks, Eric. That's a great introduction and great salesmanship of Nearpod, and I co-sign all of that. And one feature we wanted to highlight specifically on Nearpod is the Draw It feature. So the Draw It feature allows the presenter to turn any slide or image into a canvas where students can draw and write on it. As math teachers, the Draw It feature was a great way for us to have students show their work on math problems. Reading teachers in our building have been using it as a way to highlight text, and the feature is flexible enough for a teacher to engage students across any content. For us, getting to Nearpod, once our district distributed laptops to families, the Draw It feature really solved the problem of ensuring that all students have access to the same material without requiring families to pick up more materials at school or having the district mail more items home. And we discovered that the Draw It feature enhances student engagement by allowing teachers to utilize two effective in-person teaching strategies. So we are going to take a look at 2 short clips from our virtual classroom. It's going to be a 4th grade math classroom, and we are working on identifying equivalent fractions by using a visual model. We chose these clips not because we think every aspect of them is perfect, but rather we chose them to show you how Nearpod can be leveraged to increase student engagement via techniques that we have already honed during our time as in-person teachers. So the first strategy that we are going to highlight is real-time feedback. The clip that's about to roll is jumping you right as the students begin their draw-out activity. In the clip, the students have been tasked with identifying an equivalent fraction by partitioning the painting into smaller, equal-sized pieces. You're going to be looking at the Nearpod experience from the teacher's perspective. So while watching, I want you to focus on how we use Nearpod's draw-out feature to give real-time feedback to support students.
Amari, again, you really got to focus on equal pieces. Nice work. Nice work. Jacob getting started there. Nice, Kamai. Samia, remember, first step, we need you to break it into smaller pieces. Nice, Heaven. Let's see what you... Heaven, great work. Great work. Way to make sure all those pieces are about the same size. Nice, Christian. Now remember, Christian, we're just naming what's the, how much of the painting is black, all right? So you don't have to shade in anything else. Jada, is there only... Good, Jada. So count how many of those pieces are shaded black, Jada. Is it just one piece?
Okay. So by giving students in-the-moment feedback like that, just like we would in the classroom, we're able to offer them specific positive praise, constructive critique, and prompting of students that is similar to how we would interact with students during in-person class. As a result of this live and immediate feedback, students can instantly adjust or confirm their thinking. And so this second clip is just a few moments after the first clip. Students have now completed the task, and on Nearpod, the teacher can then select and share a particular student's work. Just like you could during an in-person lesson when you'd put up somebody's answer on the board and you'd all take a look at it to explain. In the clip, I've already selected a student's work intentionally, and I'm about to ask other students to explain the work over the live video platform. And I see a couple questions in the group chat that I just want to, one, I want to uplift. Yes, you can absolutely make student work anonymous. There's an option there to click, and their names turn into a series of stars so that they don't necessarily know who is doing what, which is certainly has a, definitely has its moments. Also, there's a question, yes, students were simultaneously logged on to Nearpod and our video platform, which was Zoom. So they did require 2 logins there. Alrighty, so yes, we're going to take a look here at this sort of next teacher move that looks very familiar to what we could do as in-person teachers as well.
Could other people did a similar drawing to Samia's. Someone who did a similar drawing, could you explain what Samia did? You should be able to see it, so I just need a raised hand so I can call on you. What did Samia do here? All right. Awesome. All right, Amira. Be nice and loud. I know sometimes your mic is quiet.
Okay, just like in just like during regular classes when we're in the building, student explanations of work deepen conceptual understanding and allow peer-to-peer learning. By sharing multiple works from students, we could compare different strategies or viewpoints and how they got to the solution. Again, these strategies are well-known in-person strategies. We're not reinventing the wheel here. Nearpod just allowed us to apply these strategies as effective online teaching tools. In closing, we have found Nearpod allows us to meaningfully engage students in best practices like real-time feedback and student-led explanations. We hope our brief presentation has spurred you to think creatively about how you could use Nearpod to engage students in your own setting across ages or content, and we invite you to share those brainstorms now in the group chat. And Eric and I will also be following up in the group chat, or if there's a Q&A, any questions, and we're going to try to get to those as well. We really appreciate your questions and your attention. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Claire Rivero, a digital strategy manager at Student Achievement Partners.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For just a couple of minutes, we wanted to talk about a resource called Talking Math, which is a product of Illustrative Mathematics. This is an incredible resource that's been made available for free. And the idea is these are open-ended prompts, and they encourage conversation, discussion about mathematics with images and a variety of questions to engage students. For K-5, there are 70 grade-specific questions available. They're available day by day. And then for grades 6 to 8, they're available in sort of weekly packets, but there's still one available each day of the week. What's terrific about these is they really focus students on the major work of the grade and the key topics within the major work. They were designed intentionally for inclusive learning, and so there are a number of different questions to allow students to engage with the content of the imagery, multiple entry points, and with intent around creating areas that were new to students, areas that would be challenging, and of course, some areas of familiarity to allow all students access and to allow for greater engagement. Further, they have been designed intentionally with guidance to support asynchronous learning. So there are instructions on how to provide these to students so that they can use them independently, so that they can use them in settings where they may be with other students, with family members, with caregivers, or with in classroom settings, either virtual or in person. And in the K-5 group in particular, they focus on this progression of learning that supports vertical planning and work across grades, which I think would be particularly supportive at the beginning of this coming year. The other thing we wanted to raise tonight is that Illustrative Mathematics has a variety of resources to support distance learning that are all available in their Distance Learning Resource Hub. They have 6 to 8 resources I mentioned previously, and they also have a free online curriculum for 6 to 8 and high school grades. So there are resources that can be delivered online for the grades that we didn't discuss quite as much this evening. They are also producing a K-5 curriculum that will be coming out in 2021. So keep an eye out for that. But we strongly recommend Illustrative Mathematics for supporting a variety of activities around mathematics in the year ahead. And now we would love to take some of the questions that have been coming in throughout the course of the session.
Thank you so much, Claire, and thank you so much to Matt, Eric, and Bethany. I know there are a lot of questions, one in particular that we received from a number of participants is a question about permissions. How did you handle, or did you need to get permission from parents in order to have the students use Nearpod or Seesaw or whatever presentation you had on video? And I'm going to direct this question to Bethany specifically.
Hi, yeah. So for just using Seesaw and Flipgrid in our class, we have our district already had documents that our parents had filled out at the beginning of the year that allowed us to do that. So if I was going to widely distribute that video, then yes, I need permission. So for the students that you saw, I need, those waivers for those students, but parents sign waivers during the registration for permission to use video in our class setting.
Thank you, Bethany. And Matt and Eric, before we move on, was there anything you wanted to add to that? Or was there a different process that you had to go through in terms of permissions?
Parents were aware that we were using the Zoom platform, and parents were also aware that some of the classes could be recorded for future instructions. So signing on to the platform every day, parents were aware that that some of the classes could be recorded. As far as using Nearpod, we didn't have. It was a platform that was rolled out by our district, and parents were aware that students were using Nearpod as a platform, and most of our lessons also, we gave out homework through Nearpod also. So after lessons were done, students can click onto our page via Clever and log on to the Nearpods and finish their assignments. So parents were definitely well aware of all the platforms that we were using.
Thank you, Eric. And I have another question for you and Matt, Eric. In terms of having students in the waiting room, how did you manage that? When and how was it determined that students could be let back in from the waiting room and other logistics?
So what we did, for example, if a student, if we called on a student to answer a question and they were unresponsive, that led us to believe several things, that whether they were walked away from the computer, weren't paying attention, or just wasn't attentive. So we put you in the waiting room, and what happens is after I put them in the waiting room, I would send a message telling them, if you see this message, please change your name so I know that you are here, so I know that you're active, and then I'll let you back into the classroom. So we gave them like a question or something to do to let us know that they were there. How long they were in the waiting room lets us know how long they were unattended. And then after a certain time frame, we would call parents. The behind-the-scenes manager would call that parent and let them know that their child is not on the Zoom. Because for the most part, a lot of our kiddos, their parents weren't in the room with them. So their parents would give them the responsibility to sign on and complete their work and do their work. And, obviously, a lot of people can attest to this, that some students strayed away, went to the bathroom, or was watching TV, or were playing their video games while we were teaching the lesson. So with the Nearpod, we knew exactly what was going on in real time and knew what responses we were waiting for and when we were supposed to get them. So Nearpod helped us with the real-time data on whether kids were actually working or not. And then they would be sent to the waiting room. And then some parents would literally call some parents and tell them that your child's in the waiting room because they're not doing anything. And that parent would bust in the room and see the kid on the PlayStation or something like that. So, again, Nearpod definitely opened up a lot of things for us as far as real-time data. And, after a while, the kids got really crafty and took screenshots of their picture and just had it on the Zoom. So if you looked at them, you didn't see them moving. It was a screenshot. So the Nearpod helped us with that too, getting real-time data whether the kids were actually working or not. We actually, that was pretty crafty by the kids, but we got a hold of that with the Nearpod.
Thank you for that. And this next question, I'm posing it actually to all of our presenters. In terms of, there were a lot of questions about equity. How do you work with EL students, and how do you work to meet their needs and parent needs, or students who may not have the same access to technology?
So this is Bethany. Our district did figure out a way to get devices to students that who needed devices, and then we also, in terms of, was part of the question about English language learners as well. Pascal, did I hear you correctly?
Yes, EL students.
So for me, again, one of my goals was trying to find ways that students could engage in the problem in multiple ways. So for me, those images, hearing their peers sharing ideas, I found that all of my students, I had quite a few English language learners, and they were all able to be successful, whether drawing images or whether recording their ideas in, just using their voice. This was something that everyone was able to interact with at some level. We also had some students that didn't have Wi-Fi, and I know that some parents shared that they watched the video on their phone or they recorded on Flipgrid on their phone, and that was something that they were able to do. I think that that's something that I know some families did, and they also participated in free Wi-Fi that was being offered in the area. This is definitely it's something that I thought about all the time, and definitely something that I feel like was not completely addressed, and something we're going to be continuously working on in the fall to make sure as many students as possible have access.
Thank you, Bethany. Matt, Eric, did you have anything to add to that question?
Sure, and I think that's definitely something that's on the top of our minds, especially as we continue to plan and look forward at least at some virtual time for the fall. I think some steps in the right direction from us from both a district level and then at an individual classroom level. First, our district made a real push to get a laptop into every home that did not have one already. So that way students could log in to the online and access the online material. I think from an individual level, setting up multiple opportunities to access the same material. So we would have a live lesson from 9 to 11:30 every morning. And those lessons, especially if they're done on Nearpod, could then be posted on a site to be looked at and to go through it. Now that it's not the same as going through it with during the live lesson, but another opportunity to, as well as putting aside specific office hours for students that had questions or students that we knew were either with IEPs or students that had previously received interventions. But I don't want to sit here and say, oh, we definitely solved those access issues and those equity issues. And I think they're some of the issues that are forefront of my mind as we head back to teaching in the fall.
Thank you so much. And thank you again to all of our presenters. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. I do want to draw everyone's attention to this slide here. It is a list of all of the resources that our presenters discussed this evening. And also you will have access to the same links under your green resources widget. And I can't express this enough. Please join our network. You have the ability to join a national network of educators and connect with state networks. You can be part of creating new tools and resources in partnership with student achievement partners. And you'll be kept up to date about free resources, upcoming webinars, professional learning opportunities, or even job postings. So please, please join. And you can reach out to us via Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest. You can scan the little barcode here to receive access. And before you go, we just want to know, how did you enjoy this evening's webinar? So before you log out, please take a couple moments on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being excellent. How was this evening for you? And before you go, please join us again next month. We have another webinar coming for you, Priority Instructional Content, Leveraging the Structure of College and Career-Ready Mathematics and ELA Literacy Standards. It will be August 5th, 2020 at 7 p.m. EST. You can register here via this link, and it will also be available on our website and on our different marketing platforms. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and have a great night.